Hey, we are live. This is Jake D, and we're talking pop culture for the weekend. Playing around with some new intros for the channel, having a little bit of fun, trying to figure out, what my final branding is going to look like and things like that. But, see how it goes. Let me know what you guys think of the new intro there. I might throw a couple more in on my next stream or two. Unfortunately, my friend Val Gear, who's generally joined me as my co-host on these streams, is feeling a bit sick and under the weather today, so we're going to be flying solo for the first time. Hope everybody has a good time and enjoys anyway. So, pop culture today in 2020, it is something that, it's been a part of my life ever since I can think back. Genre entertainment, whether it was Star Wars, or there was Star Trek, sci-fi, fantasy, Lord of the Rings, you name it, it's something that I love. Has always been a part of what I like to see. And it just, as long as I can remember, it's something that really just drives me and energizes me and makes me have a lot of fun. And, in the spirit of that intro that just feels really kind of 80s and pop and fun, I went to an actual theater last night. Went to the movie theater, had a giant tub of popcorn, huge drink, lots and lots of fun. And I got to see something in the theater on the big screen that I never really thought I'd see in my entire life. And that was Raiders of the Lost Ark. And let me tell you what, that was a hell of a lot of fun, y'all. Getting the opportunity to see Harrison Ford back in his prime. Something put together by George Lucas back when he was one of the best creators out there. And somebody who just knew what entertainment was. Getting a chance to relive that in the live modern movie theater was absolute heaven for me. So my girlfriend and I went to see the movie, and it was so amazing because you actually got to just experience it the way the movie was always meant to be seen. Whether you're talking about the Well of the Souls, when he's in there dealing with all the snakes and getting trapped in his escape, the final scene when the Ark is opened and you get to see those, at the time they were the best special effects in the business. I mean, today it looks a little dated to an extent, but it's still a fun, enjoyable experience because it's from back when entertainment was what it was always meant to be. And that's good fun, good escapism, and just something that anybody can sit down in the theater or sit down in front of their television set and stream and enjoy. And that's something that I truly do miss from entertainment today that, I'm beginning to wonder, as the title of the stream implies, are we starting to see a change of the tides in what's going to be put on our screens, what's going to be put in front of us, and what's going to be coming out of Hollywood and other development studios, wherever that may be? The days of escapism entertainment could be coming back. There were a lot of signs of it over the last year or two, particularly maybe the last about 9-10 months or so, that Hollywood perhaps had finally truly gotten the message. And that message is, quite simply, get woke, go broke. And the failure after failure at the box office and in other media as well, I think had truly started to reach into the pocketbooks ultimately of the major studios, which is where we've got to reach them if we want them to truly understand just what sort of entertainment the general public really, truly wants to see. It's fun. That's what we want more than anything else. And we just simply want to enjoy our entertainment and not have to worry about the everyday. Hey, you know what? There's this horrible thing going on in the country today. We'll lovingly call it the the beer bug, because YouTube doesn't particularly like it when we use the real name. And, a lot of people are stressed out. A lot of people are rightfully concerned about unrest in the cities, lots of good and bad things going on out there because of some of this civil unrest that the country is experiencing. And right now, our entertainment hasn't been giving us a break from these things. And because, the last thing that I want to see when I'm going to see a movie is something that reminds me of the bad things that are going on in everyday life. And there's a group of people out there that you sort of loosely affiliate with this hashtag called the Fandom Menace. And the underlying point and purpose of people who identify that way is to, exactly these things I was just talking about. We just want entertainment to be entertainment. We don't want it to be crammed down our throats with a bunch of messaging. And regardless of which message it is, any major political party in the United States, we don't want to see that in our entertainment. We just want to have fun. And Raiders of the Lost Ark was exactly that. Star Wars was exactly that. Star Trek was exactly that. Some of them were more action, some of them were more fantasy, and some of them were more thought-provoking and intellectual. But at the end of the day, every single one of these genre shows and movies was about fun. And it was about living and experiencing this fantasy world where it was a place that perhaps you might want to go, a place that you might want to be outside of your day-to-day life, whether that's a 9-to-5 job, whether it's driving OTR on the trucks, or, whether it's dealing with politics, whatever it might be. We simply want our escape from real life. And I have to admit, some of the events of the past few months did have me concerned that maybe the steps forward that we'd seen coming out of Hollywood might be getting the brakes put on them. And, the examples of that, and kind of the big one that's come up recently is in relation to season 2 of The Boys. I was a big fan of The Boys season 1. It's a very adult, anti-hero, dark Justice League type show. Lots of gore, lots of nudity. Not a show for kids, but it was definitely fun sci-fi genre fantasy type area where I could check out and enjoy the story for the most part. And unfortunately, it looks like a season 2 is not going to go that route. Now, one thing I will say about season 2 of this show is that it was written a couple of years ago. They'd already really written and produced and filmed season 1, and they got going on season 2 and started putting it together and getting it ready to air next month. And recently in an interview, the showrunner said some things that really are concerning to me. And I'm going to play this little video here for you to listen to, and then we'll chat about it a bit.
It's a great question. We were really interested in exploring the idea of authority figures get the public really riled up with xenophobia and racism. Ultimately, the most dangerous people are like the white dudes standing next to you.
The most dangerous people are the white dudes standing next to you. That is... that's a problem, right? I mean, he went on further to talk about how he wrote this perspective directly into the show, and he had a ready-made villain for it that was literally one of those bad guys from Germany, but instead he tried to somehow make it a surprise by changing that character into a woman to be the antithesis of Homelander, one of the chief members of the Seven in the show. And everything that Kripke goes on to say in this interview just leads me to believe that what he cared about was his own political point of view, his own political messages, and he intends to really hammer us over the head with that. And, I'm going to watch the show. And the reason I'm going to watch the show is so I can talk to you about it here, give you my take on it, my opinion on where it's going, and maybe save some of you from having to subject yourself to watching it, because I have no hope that it's going to be a good show that is going to enjoy the same kind of success that season 1 did. And then, we see a lot of that coming through, and it's concerning because we thought we'd sort of turned a corner on these kind of things. But interviews with guys like Kripke make you say, oh, man. And what's further disappointing to me about that is Kripke's the guy who was running Supernatural. It's a show that's been on for, 14, 15 seasons. It's got a huge cult following. Lots and lots of people really, really enjoy that show. But it looks like he's decided not to go with pure entertainment anymore. And he's really, into that Hollywood, my message and my thoughts are the only things that are good and matter type of route. All that being said, we've seen signs that things are turning a corner. AT&T recently bought Warner Media. And last fall, during their third quarter earnings call, one of the things that the CEO of AT&T said is that there's going to be a deep dive and look at every element of their business. And one of the places that he was pointing to at this discussion was his acquisition of Warner Media. And his exact quote was that there are no sacred cows. What he meant by that is there was nothing safe from his review and his various chief deputies in order to make changes to the business to be more profitable. So what does this have to do with Get Woke, Go Broke? Well, let's think about The Last Jedi. The specific goal of that movie, according to Rian Johnson, the writer and director, was absolutely to subvert your expectations, which translated, that means that he's going to do something that you don't want, maybe you're not expecting, something that doesn't even necessarily make any sense with the characters that we know and we love, right? And it's been hashed over and over repeatedly on social media and YouTube and entertainment articles and sort of the world in general, that this is not a well-loved movie. It was divisive. They knew it was going to be divisive, and they knew for a fact that, half the fans weren't even going to like the damn thing. And if you're AT&T and you've got problems with debt and you're trying to produce more profitable business, do you think that the smart move is driving customers away by building divisive media? I don't think it's a stretch to say that it's not. That's a bad idea for your bottom line. If you alienate fans, those customers are not going to spend money with you anymore. And spending money with you is, hey, it's what we want to do. All I want to do, I want to see good Star Wars. I want to see good Superman. I want to see good Batman. I want to see great Lord of the Rings. I want to see good Doctor Who, right? But if you're putting out a product that I and many fans like me don't like, you're not going to get my money. And that's just going to be a recipe for a disaster. And that's where this adage of get woke, go broke comes from. Some of the changes recently that we're starting to see, though, come from some of the show creators and movie producers out there. The best example that I'm seeing recently, in my opinion, was we were given season 1 of a show on Disney Plus last fall called The Mandalorian. I was apprehensive going into it, but I was willing to give it a try. And what I came away from was, like many people, love Baby Yoda. He's cute. He's cuddly. You want to give him a hug. You sort of want to know what the heck's going to happen to him because there was no Baby Yoda come Force Awakens timeline, right? I mean, he wasn't there, he wasn't around, and the Jedi were a myth. So you do certainly wonder what's going to happen to this little guy. And you're given the character of Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, who is, he's not some weak, scared soy boy. He is in many ways a strong masculine character who is, going through, maybe some sort of his own hero's journey, perhaps. But so you get a good season one like that. I mean, overall, it was maybe say a 7 out of 10 or so, but it felt like Star Wars. It looked like Star Wars. And it at least gave me optimism that there was a possibility we could be, treated to more of that. And, mediocre Star Wars, that's an escape from reality. Honestly, that's good enough for me to get my money. Call me crazy, but if it's given me enjoyment, even if it's not an absolutely amazing work of art, I'm still there. There's lots of films and shows that are, not particularly good that I enjoy. And, I'm not ashamed to admit Mandalorian is one of those. You do worry, though, because we've seen a lot of shows come out with a decent first season, like The Boys, that then turn around and just change and become all about political messaging, as we're seeing from Eric Kripke in that clip that I just played. Favreau, on the other hand, who's the showrunner for The Mandalorian and appears to be potentially positioned to take over Lucasfilm, has had a very, very different message that honestly, us as fans, we haven't been used to seeing over the past few years. I'm going to play some clips from an interview that Favreau gave last week that, really, really helped me and made me a little more excited about what's happening.
We wanted to really wind it back to the things that inspired the original Star Wars. Part of what you inherit when you're going to see Star Wars now is this whole history, because the stories have been told for decades. And this is something I learned from over at Marvel and working with Kevin Feige, is you always want to keep the core fans in mind, because they've been the ones that have been keeping the torch lit for many, many years. But these are also stories for young people and for new audiences. These are myths. And so you're really telling two stories at once. You're telling the story for the people who are fresh eyes, and you're telling the story for the people who've been there with the property and with the stories and the characters for so many years, and make sure that you're honoring them as well.
Wow. I have not heard a creator talk like that in years. Not for years. When I listen to Favreau in this interview, I'm hearing a fan. I'm hearing somebody who's dedicated and invested to the property in the same way that I am. And in the same way that a lot of us are, right? People who've been a part of this, growing up our whole lives. I mean, Star Wars hit theaters a couple of years before I was even born. I remember buying toys from Return of the Jedi when I was in, first and second grade, which is even a few years after the movie came out. And, going to see the movies, the special editions in theaters when I was a young man right at the end of high school. I remember sitting and seeing the first trailer for the release of the special editions, and no idea what movie we were going to see, but the whole theater stood and cheered and clapped for a trailer. I believe that Favreau stood and clapped for that trailer. I hear him talking this way, and I'm willing to trust him. This isn't the first time that Favreau has talked about the properties that he's in charge of in this fashion. He was talking in this exact same way back in November when season 1 of The Mandalorian launched. One of the key things he talked about at that time was having respect for the fans and understanding the fan base. And, again, that was music to my ears. That was a new tone out of Lucasfilm that I was unfamiliar with after having years and years of listening to Kathleen Kennedy, and hearing people talk about how movies weren't made for me. To hear Jon Favreau go into the need to respect and understand the fans was new and different. It was something we hadn't heard for years. And then he gave some more interviews this year where he was talking about the need to not just respect the fans, but to listen to them. And, again, not something that we had been a part of or heard about before. And it was, just to me, it was really shocking. And I was just truly, truly surprised to find a creator of some of my favorite material talking that way. And it was respect. It was respect, and it was understanding, and it was coming from a place of love, which was something I had not seen in ages. And it was good. And then he comes out with this. It was in an interview that he was giving along with Dave Filoni. They were talking about how they met, how they began to work together and collaborate and become a part of the team that's really driving at least The Mandalorian. And if you believe some of the rumors that we've heard coming out of, particularly some YouTube channels such as Overlord DVD, Doomcock, where it appears that there's going to be some kind of change pretty imminent in Lucasfilm in the very, very near term. A lot of those rumors are pointing at Favreau as being the guy who's going to be in charge. And if that's the case, I am all for it. I'm 100% on board, and I have no problem getting behind this guy because he's speaking to me. He's speaking to the longtime fans, and he definitely is coming from a place of love, which is all we can ask for. Now, does listening to the fans and being a part of what we're doing in the creation process and being a two-way street, does that mean that everything that we want and say is what they need to do? Oh, absolutely not. Look, some of my ideas would be the stupidest things you could possibly put on film. Trust me on that, But at the same time, the idea that you shouldn't give a voice to the fandom is wrong. And, I agree with you, Culture. Changes are just around the corner. And I dropped the link in the chat, by the way, if you want to pop in, you're more than welcome to. But, I'm certainly hoping that we are going to see positive changes. And certainly the messaging that I see out of Lucasfilm feels very, very different than anything we've seen for since 2014 when Disney bought the property. So, that's sort of where I am and where I'm feeling about, at least the state of Star Wars. There's definitely a new hope. And I'm looking forward to it, which I haven't said for a very, very long time. So that brings me to kind of the next topic I wanted to get into today. And it's along the same veins. It's about working with what the fans want and what they need and what they're looking for in whatever platform of entertainment you're talking about. So I'm going to shift a little bit over to video games. So we've seen a lot of recent releases of video games that have both been good and bad. Just in the past 2 months, I think we've gotten two great examples of perhaps what you do and you don't do in order to continue to grow your fan base, because a video game platform is no different than other medias of entertainment in the sense of you need to capture a fan base, you need to cultivate it, you need to grow it. Last month brought us the release of a game called The Last of Us 2. This month brought us a release of a game called Ghost of Tsushima. And to give you a little bit of a taste of what the fans of the gaming platforms had to say about these, we're going to take a quick look at the Metacritic scores. We're going to start with The Last of Us 2. So Metacritic is a rating site. If you're not familiar with it, it's, they do things, similar to how Rotten Tomatoes will rate TV shows and movies. Metacritic also includes video games. And The Last of Us Part 2 released in June and got a great critical score, 94. And when you read the reviews on these things, it was mainly talking about the political elements that were a part of the story. And it was the message more than anything. And this game truly took the Rian Johnson approach of subverting expectations of the fans. And, as you can see, the fans responded in the exact same way they did to The Last Jedi. They gave it a 5.6 out of 10 for the user score, and there were over 140,000 ratings by gamers in response to what was the most highly anticipated game of 2020. This is bad. This is worse than bad. This is absolutely awful. 5.6. Now, first off, the game looks beautiful. It's important to remember that. The Last of Us 2 is beautifully made. The graphics are incredible. The cutscenes are dynamite. The gameplay is great. But at the end of the day, the story is what grabs and captures and keeps the fan. And the fans hated it. For those of you who have followed it, you understand, but the main character from the first game is brutally murdered 2 hours into the new game. And you end up having to play as the character that killed this fan favorite from the first game. And the fans reacted and they said, no. They said, we don't like this. Did the game sell very well? You betcha it did. Tons of pre-orders. It's got good gameplay, but it definitely lost money compared to what it could have been. Had they released a game that was universally loved instead of one that divided the audience in half, which is exactly what you see with this score. You've got a complete split of the audience. They would have made a lot more money. They would have shipped a lot more copies. Now, released this month, Ghost of Tsushima. Again, this is a beautiful game made by Sucker Punch. The gameplay on this is smooth. It's incredible. It's got a lot of neat features and functions. I've been watching Valgear play this game a fair bit, and it is beautiful. He's been playing since this thing released, and he's only in Act 2, and he puts a fair amount of time into the game. It's hugely rich in content. It's a new property, so there was nothing, nobody knew exactly what to expect from this. And the fans have responded. An average score of 9.3 on Metacritic. According to some people who review games, they're considering this perhaps the most well-received game of this entire console generation. That might be a hair of an overstatement, but I can tell you this, I've seen it, and it is a hell of a game. It's smooth, it's fun, it's got great story built into it. The open world is absolutely gorgeous. And everything about this was just done right by Sucker Punch. Whether it's the culture that they've drawn from here in Japan, whether it's people in the States, regardless of where you are, people love this game because it delivers a fun experience and a rich story that you can immerse yourself in. Again, in contrast to Last of Us 2, that delivers a story that jars you out of your emotional attachment, and it gives you a sucker punch, right? It's just, and I think that it'll be very interesting to watch how these two games kind of end up to close out 2020 in terms of sales. The Last of Us 2 had a built-in fan base that bought this thing sight unseen based on nothing more than a few trailers that, oh, by the way, were seriously deceptive and made you think you got to play that favorite character through the whole game. So it had a ton of built-in purchases just based on the success of the original game. Ghost of Tsushima, of course, is a brand new property. And it didn't meet The Last of Us 2's month one sales. New properties are never going to do that. But when you see scores like this, it's got a solid score from the critics. It's got an amazing score from the game players. That is going to generate the word of mouth necessary for this thing to accelerate. And I would not be shocked if we look at total units shipped at the end of the year and we find that Ghost of Tsushima has outpaced Last of Us 2, despite the fact that Last of Us 2 had a month head start and it had that built-in fan base that gave it a huge boost in initial sales. Not going to be surprised at all if Ghost of Tsushima surpasses that ultimately, because it's a great game that delivers what gamers want to see overall. For this style of game, it's absolutely what you want to see. So again, maybe games aren't your thing, but I definitely find it really interesting to take a look at this because it's the same theme, whether it's games, whether it's movies, whether it's TV shows. We're seeing the exact same kind of thing reverberating throughout, the various different parts of our culture. And, so it's at the end of the day, if you listen to your fans, if you deliver what your fans want, you're going to have a good result. All right. Bill and Ted. I have been a huge fan of Bill and Ted. I remember when the first movie came out when I was a kid. And, you hear some of those iconic lines going through your heads, be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. I mean, these are lines that a guy my age, I'm 40 years old, a guy my age, you remember these things forever, right? Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was similar to Raiders. Now, don't get me wrong, it's nowhere near as good as Raiders, but it was fun. It was good escapism entertainment. They followed it up a few years later with, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, which, while nowhere near as good as the original, was still fun, right? It had some good new elements added into it. And seeing that they've created a Bill and Ted 3 is bringing us to, again, another recurring theme that we've seen a lot out of Hollywood in the past 10 years, and that's a revival of old properties. We've seen them bring back Ghostbusters 2016. We've seen them bring back the Terminator franchise. We've seen them bring back lots of old, particularly 80s properties to try to bring them back onto the screen. Why are they doing that? Because people my age grew up with the 80s. We've got nostalgia for it. And when you're looking at your demographics of who's got money to spend, your big group right now are people who grew up and have great nostalgia for the 80s. That's why we're seeing it as really the big thing. 5 years or so, we'll start seeing more 90s creeping in, but right now it's the 80s that are hot. And so as a result of that, you've got people bringing about revived properties, and they're trying to put their new spin on them. And these same sort of issues that are really just infesting other properties that we've seen have come about in other areas with some of these new films. The, kind of the first one of those that dropped that really, really did things to cause damage to their properties was Ghostbusters 2016. Ghostbusters 2016 was an incredibly unfunny movie. It had some chuckle moments in it. I'm not going to say I never laughed when I saw it. I don't think it's as awful as some members of the Fandom Menace do, but it's not a good film. It had no legs. It made no money, and it dead ended. They wanted to turn this into the new Ghostbusters franchise, but they couldn't. And why couldn't they? Well, again, look at the audience score here from Rotten Tomatoes. It came in at a 50% from the audience. In general, folks did not like this movie. And there's a lot of reasons for it. And one of the least of which is not the messaging that came out of people like Paul Feig, that came out of people like Leslie Jones and the rest of the cast of the show, where, they were talking about the fact that they're going to make people like me angry. We're not going to like it. If we're offended, take a hike, right? And it was, again, this consistent messaging out of Hollywood that they didn't care about people like me. They didn't want my money. And, well, the public heard your message, y'all. And this is the result of that. When you don't put a good product together, when you tell people they're unwelcome, when you tell people that they don't want to be there, this is what you get. Another great example of this, Terminator Dark Fate. or as some people in the fandom Menace like to call it, Terminator woke fate. So what's a great way to kill a franchise? I know. Let's kill the hero in the first 5 minutes of the movie. Didn't work out so well, did it? You know, they open this movie and John Connor is killed by a T-800 Schwarzenegger model in the first 5 minutes of the movie. And they introduce basically a whole new cast outside of a now much older Sarah Connor. And then they bring back an aged Terminator who is now a Draper. Yes, you heard that right. A Draper with a D. and was married, but had no relationship physically with the woman that he was married to. and this movie bombed. The estimates were that it was going to need to make about $465 million, kind of all told, in order to break even realistically and make any money. And its box office finished up at about 265 or so, give or take a couple million. I was looking at the numbers earlier, but it was in that neighborhood. And so when you go about sort of changing the DNA of a franchise and doing these significant breaks from what made them good, and frankly, what made Terminator and Terminator 2 good was the Arnold Schwarzenegger action flick. That's what they were. That was the heart of them. The first one, you know, it was nothing but that, right? Then T2 was, of course, something of a masterpiece in the sci-fi genre. And it was still an Arnold Schwarzenegger action flick, but of course they brought him in as the hero this time because he'd advanced in his career. They put a good story behind it, and bam, you've got a hit movie. And they've tried to recapture that and reboot that several times over the years with no good success. And then, but when you take a Schwarzenegger action flick and you try to turn that into a woman who's acting like a man led story, it just doesn't work. It's not at all something that's going to have a chance, because it's just, there's no verisimilitude. There's a lot of it that just isn't believable to the moviegoer. That, and with Terminator, you've got a really tired and worn out franchise. And so these types of switches, you know, yet again, it's something that just doesn't really work for any kind of movie franchise whatsoever. In this messaging, the losses at the box office that movies like that saw, I think, has really informed some of the changes that we're going to be seeing out of places like Disney and out of Favreau. Oh, this is great. I'm going to highlight the comment here. If I want preaching, I'll go to church, not Hollywood. Amen, sister. Amen. I mean, you're exactly right. If I need to be preached at, that's where I'm going to go. If I want preaching, that's where I'm going to go. If, on the other hand, I want good entertainment and I want to have some fun, I'm going to turn on a movie like Raiders of the Lost Ark, which was one of the single coolest cinema experiences I have ever had. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up for today. It's a little bit shorter stream than I've been doing recently, but when you're doing it solo instead of with a partner or two or a panel, it's you sort of run through your topics a little bit quicker. But I do hope that y'all enjoy the content today, that you liked what I was talking about, and that you'd like to see some more. In particular, I do want to hear folks' feedback about the new intro, see what you think. I'm still playing around with a couple of others and might make a couple of adjustments to final channel branding. But if you're stuck around this long, please do like the video, share it with your friends on social media, comment below, and please consider subscribing to the channel. I've had a lot of fun doing this. I enjoy talking with y'all in the chat, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to bring in some additional collaborators on some streams. And hey, I'm absolutely open to joining others on theirs, just to have a good time and become a greater part of the community. So again, thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to catching you on the next stream.